Hello everybody, the editor of Don't Look Up here. So the Oscars announced their nominations not too long ago. Let's give one up for the Oscars. Yeah. So I will be briefly talking about the films I've previously discussed in other videos. By the way, if you want to watch, check them out here. I want to talk about the nominations that stuck out to me, talk about some of the best pictures, and then just go into some random thoughts that I have. Being the Ricardos. This movie is about the behind the scenes of the show I Love Lucy. I'm not that big on Aaron Sorkin, not to say that he's bad at what he does, but as of recently I have been getting kind of tired of his style. Aaron Sorkin does tend to write very similar scripts, at least the way they sound. There's always lawyer shit and the characters are always smart with each other. What can I say? The guy likes legalities. Some of his films definitely work better than others, but this one instantly I, from the very beginning, did not care about. From the first conversation with J.K. Simmons' character, I was already not into it. The movie starts off with a bunch of old people saying how amazing the I Love Lucy show is. Alright, but why don't you show me instead of telling me? The film heavily relies on the audience already knowing the premise of the I Love Lucy show, but the show ended like in 1957. The movie's opening doesn't do a good job relaying the severity of the situation. Everyone in the beginning is like running around saying, oh my god, this is bad, but the movie doesn't go into any more detail on why that would be bad. The 50s were a different time, so you really have to describe why something like this would be very upsetting. There are times when the dialogue really undermines the tone the film is trying to set up. Someone will say something, and it kinda kills the mood that the scene is going for. And I'm just left thinking, is this supposedly witty remark worth killing the scene? And what's unfortunate is that that type of humor is so common in this film. The character of Lucy is set up to be a bit of an asshole. And yes, I get that she's supposed to be different from this caricature of the show, but there's some things that they show that portray her as really awful. I thought it was a little confusing as to why they would do that. There's some scenes that feel incredibly fake in this movie, like it's obviously a set. There's a specific scene where they're standing out on a balcony, and you can just tell that they're using fake lighting. There could be an argument to be made that it's purposeful, like it's meant to look like an old 50s set, but regardless, I still don't like the way it looks. I touched on this a little bit before, but I did not like the moments when the movie just stopped, so people could tell you in like a documentary style what's happening in the film. But here's the thing. I don't care about these people. I wanted this film to stop interrupting this already boring movie just to give unnecessary exposition. Like, stop it. They're just like, yeah, this was really like the worst day of the set. Alright, then show me then. The way this story is told is so unnecessarily confusing. One of the story threads is that she gets pregnant, but not too much later they have the baby. However, they pace the film in like sequential days, so like Monday, Tuesday. The jumps in time did not work at all for me, and by the end, the movie felt confused and unfocused. It really felt like the movie didn't know what to say about the main characters, and it wasn't that great. But whatevs, you know, let's give it some Oscars, who cares? And I give this a 4 out of 10. The next movie I want to briefly talk about is the movie Coda. This movie got nominated for quite a few Oscars as well as Best Picture. You know, I gotta say, I didn't like this one, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There were some shots in this film I really liked. There was a nice variety of wide angles with nice clean movement, but there were others that looked unflattering, especially with the way it was lit. Some of the scenes in the school really kind of had a TV quality feel to it. I thought the humor in this film was really bad in the first half, but by the second half, when the story actually picks up, I did start to become way more engaged with it. The only thing that I actually really liked from this movie was the main actress's performance, and I really liked it quite a bit. There were some choices made with the sound that I also really liked. There were some moments that had a lack of sound that I thought really added a lot to certain scenes. Overall, this is a very light film that's very digestible, and it wasn't bad by any means. It's a safe bet, so I get why it was nominated. However, I give it a 5 out of 10. Give it a shot, you might like it. There's a lot of people connecting with this film. Now, I know I've talked about this one already, but we gotta go again. Don't Look Up. I gotta talk about the nominations. As anyone who's previously seen my last video, you will know, I did not like this film. This film was nominated for Best Screenplay, Best Editing, and Best Picture. What I find so crazy about these nominations is that the writing and editing actively go against the film. I believe this film could have been noteworthy, or at the least better, if the technicals didn't clash with itself. The writing is absolutely obnoxious and doesn't really provide anything except of only surface level analysis. That and the editing being very out of place all the time. This movie could have been good if these elements were handled at least with a little bit of competence. But the Oscars are praising this film specifically for these elements. What's actually really funny is that some people are comparing this to when Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Editing. These types of choices make me wonder, what really are the people down in Oscarville like looking for? Anyways, this is probably my most hated Best Picture nomination, I think, of all time. I don't know if I've rated a nomination as low as this before, but with confidence, I'm giving this a 1 out of 10. Sorry. Now I'm going to move into a little bit of a miscellaneous discussion. Not necessarily bad films. Now, I need to bring up the fact that every Disney movie that came out this year has been nominated for an Oscar to a degree. I just want to say that's a little sus. If you look at the category for Best Animation, it looks just like a Disney advertisement. It's kind of stuff like this that has a lot of people turned off by the Oscars. People don't see the Oscars as actually awarding these best films. No. People kind of see it as what studio can pay their way to get nominations. I mean, let's get honest here. Who here realized The Eyes of Tammy Faye came out this year? Like, come on. Instead of seeing a tiny golden statue, a lot of people just see an old man sitting on a couch. Every year, I just see that old man more and more. Out of all the hate I've been spewing out, I do think there's some good nominations going on. Kristen Stewart getting nominated for Spencer, and Kirsten Dunst getting a nomination for The Power of the Dog is also really cool to see. Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley both getting performance nominations for The Lost Daughter is pretty dope. The Lost Daughter is, I believe, the directorial debut for Maggie Gyllenhaal. For many actors turned directors, they usually neglect the technical and visual side of the film. A recent film that I discussed, Passing, fell into that category for me personally. And in saying that, I don't think Passing is an ugly looking film. I think it's actually quite nice looking. What I'm really talking about is the intention of certain editing and directing of certain scenes. If you want to hear a little bit more about my thoughts of Passing, check out my previous video. However, even from the beginning of this film, there's obvious intention in the movement and visuals of certain scenes. And I liked that. What I like about this movie is that everything kind of works together to enhance the performances of the main actresses. The screenplay and editing really highlights the emotions of the actors. And for me personally, it was pretty effective. It's a little slow, but overall it was a pretty good movie. Nightmare Alley was great, but I'll get into that when I talk about Best Pictures. Speaking of which, let's get into Best Pictures. Now going further, I have not seen 3 of the nominations, and they are Drive My Car, West Side Story, and King Richard. Funny enough, I've been really wanting to watch Drive My Car, but instead of trying to rush to watch it for this video, I really would rather take my time and really get into it when I'm ready for it. I'll get to West Side Story at some point, I don't know when, and I'm not really running out to see King Richard. It looks fine, it doesn't look like my thing. First up is Nightmare Alley, directed by the awesome and award-winning Guillermo del Toro. I love Guillermo's works, and this one is no exception. This film follows a mysterious man as he starts to work with a traveling circus. To start off, the cinematography and production is amazing. This film is definitely showing some love to 1940s cinema, while also keeping a modern approach. The writing and the characters were one of my favorite aspects of the film. The characters are very manipulative and deceitful with each other, which really helps bring out some really stellar performances. Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, Rooney Mara, and many others do an amazing job at their roles. There is a lot of great looking wide shots that really makes a lot of the locations feel a whole lot bigger than they are. The carnival felt so lively and like a place that could have been real. This film is definitely on the longer side, being around 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I kind of feel like the runtime was deserved. The way the film slowly moved forward while raising the stakes more and more, it really accumulated to an intense last half of the film. By the end of it, I was quite satisfied with the whole experience. Not too much to complain about here, and I'm giving this one a strong 8 out of 10, closer to a 9. Next up, I just gotta bring it up one more time, don't look up. It's also nominated for Best Picture. You already know how I feel about this movie, but damn, this movie sucks. Next up, it's Dune. I've already talked about this film in a previous video. The visual effects and sound is incredible, the production and cinematography is top notch, and I thought the directing was fantastic. However, Denis Villeneuve didn't even get a Best Directing nom. That's kinda lame. The movie is a blockbuster that takes the special and practical effects to the next level, and it's quite a sight to see. Moving on, Licorice Pizza. Again, I already gave my thoughts in a previous video. It's not really a surprise, the Oscars seem to love Paul Thomas Anderson. That being said though, I really loved this film. As I stated before, this is not my favorite PTA film, but the dynamic of the characters and the performances along with the directing really did it for me. There's a bunch of moments that I vividly remember several months later, and I had a really good time watching this. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Next up is The Power of the Dog, directed by Jane Campion. I'm a little familiar with Jane Campion's older films from the mid-90s, films like The Piano, and while I wasn't a big fan of those, I ended up really enjoying this new one. To start off, the performances are pretty great, with Benedict Cumberbatch giving his most reserved yet highly emotive performance that I've seen from him. Kirsten Dunst also does a wonderful job. In this movie, without giving too much detail away, the characters would peel back more of themselves emotionally as the film went along, and in doing so would stir up ideas of the character's own masculinity, and it really did become quite emotional. I do think that the movie starts a little too slow for me, but it was very rewarding by the end. I'm not really upset with any of the nominations that this film got, and I would recommend this film. And finally, Coda was nominated for Best Picture. I already talked about this one earlier. It's a light film that's pretty good performance from the main actress. It's not horrible, it's not bad, but there really isn't anything else I kind of liked from this movie. Now, to look at this list, I'm not going to say what I think should win, because there's quite a few that I'm actually okay with. Finally, let's talk about some films that should have gotten some Oscars. Some Oscar love, you know? First up is obvious for me, the film Come On, Come On. This was personally my favorite film of the year, and I could easily see this film getting Best Performance nominations for Joaquin Phoenix and Woody Norman, Best Screenplay, Best Directing, and a Best Sound. The story and dialogue was incredibly well written that you can get so much out of from the themes and the characters. This film does not give out pointless exposition. What it does is it implies certain details of characters throughout the film. The audience can choose to pick up on these things, and in doing so, allows the audience to take and experience what they want from the film. I fucking love this movie, and it received no Oscar nominations. And I gotta say, that hit hard for me. That was not a good feeling. Some people were a little frustrated that Red Rocket didn't receive any nominations, as well as one of my personal faves from this year, Titane. It didn't receive any Oscar nominations, but that kind of makes sense. This film was way too extreme and way too French for the Oscars. It's confirmed, the Oscars hate French people. A little aside, when I talk about snubs, I know that there's a bunch of movies that come out a year, and what I really find interesting from listening to people talk about the Oscars is that someone's list could be very different from mine. So what I really want to leave people with is that the Oscars chose The Eyes of Tammy Faye instead of some of the films you might have liked. Think about that when you're going to sleep tonight. This is about all I really have to say about the Oscars this year. I hope everyone who watched this enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want, check out some other content I have right here. Peace to all. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Oh shit.